Колеги, доброго ранку. Український кризовий медіа-центр розпочинає.
Good morning. We are starting our work, and the floor is given to the head of Achievements of the NGO Lustration Committee with the dismissing documents from top 50 officials who must be lustrated. Good morning, esteemed colleagues. I'm going to use the figures and names which are most liked by the journals, but to us this is the best index of the efficiency work of the Lustration Committee, and moreover about that kind of sabotage we are talking every day about, and which leads to the situation when Yanukovych people come back to the offices, those people who actually are who's guilty of the tragic events which took place 1 year back. And actually this is really a problem because they're going to be in the way to develop the country and reaching the country we all of us want. We are talking about a list of 50 persons who must be illustrated, which was generated in the list in February this year, who fall under two criteria, who actually had the top offices under Yanukovych, who didn't want to go away on their own will in those days. Why we generated that list? Because 3 months later, after the law on clearing the authorities, on cleaning the authorities came into force, we are talking about the heads and the managers who illegally took the offices. In other words, the persons who had to be fired yet in October last year, they continue to be in their offices. So we generated the list top 50 officials who must be illustrated, and we try to do everything for them to be fired. Since failure to fire just one person means that all the rest have a chance and permission not to follow or not to observe the law. So to this day, they fired 29 person of those 50 is on the screen. Most of the people were fired from the Minister of the Interior. That doesn't mean that the Minister of the Interior sticks completely to the law. That means that the Minister of the Interior has the biggest number of those people who had to be fired long before, and only through pressure exerted on that we actually managed to reach a situation when those officials are fired. The majority of those persons fired, were fired by the Minister Avakov. Immediately after they submitted the request to fire Avakov himself, And those actions on the part of the public officials like Avakov, that was kind of show off, just to see how we are doing that. But actually their criminal negligence or failure to act actually resulted in the failure for us, all of us, to implement the reforms, or to reach those goals which we set ourselves during Maidan and over the last year. I'm going to talk about the most interesting persons who were fired from the Ministry of the Interior. Vitaly Sakal, Deputy Minister of that ministry, is a very interesting story. He was one of the two major deputies to Avakov, whose request was sent by the special body which is involved in cleaning the authority program. And when the court started to consider those two suits against Sakal actually decided to retire, as we understand only too well. Nobody in this country can leave such offices on their own will. This is something which happened to the first Deputy General Prosecutor, who supposedly actually left his position or left his job out of his own will, but this is not the case. Another name, Anatoly Tomachov, the Southern Railway Station, the head of the Security Department, Sergei Rosocha, first deputy of the head of the investigation department, Igor Polkovnikov, head of the criminal militia in Zhytomyr region, Alexandra Mishnichenko, first deputy of the Minister of Interior of Ukraine, Dnipropetrovsk region, head of the investigation department, Sergei Petruk, head of the investigation department division in the Southern Railway, and another deputy ministry at Dnipropetrovsk Railway, and the head of the investigation department, Anatoly Syrenko, head of the department of the Ministry of Interior, Igor Bogdanov, Southern Railway part in his colleague in Kharkov region, Shapovalov, head of the deputy head of the Southern Railway Department, his colleague from Pridniprovsk Railway, head of the public security, Nagornyak, deputy head of Minister of Interior in Lviv region. Also would like to say a few more words that this in this issue to this belongs to our mind Alexander Trishuk. As you know, Alexander Trishuk against embraces the position of the head of the Kiev militia. We demanded his firing for a long time. And there were lots of these requests, and not only from our NGO, but from other public organizations, because this is a person who not only worked for 2 years under the Yanukovych regime, and he was the head of the Volyn militia. He actually he was the person who gave the order to get the Maidan in Voletsk away from the square. As you know, Prime Minister Tsnuk announced his failure. Almost immediately after that, the minister actually used his unique right to take away from the law on lustration those generals who were needed for the defense capability of this country. For a long time, we raised the issue how the head of the Kiev militia can be instrumental for the defense capability of Ukraine. So the vice president, it was not very important. So this is the same person again as the head of Kiev militia, and it's understandable that such actions of his send a signal to all the departments in Ukraine that the law can be not followed or not observed. So I'm going to repeat many times that the observation of law of this law in Ukraine, nobody wants to observe this law. In the top authorities, neither Prime Minister, nor the President, nor the heads of all the major departments and ministries, nor the state fiscal service, nor the Minister of the Interior. So that's why the efficiency of this law depends only on the public at large. A few words about Sakal. This is a good example how efficiently acts the public lustration, let's put it this way. I mean, firing those officials who are fired because of the public pressure. But we have the official information that he is embraced today the position of advisor to the Minister of Akov. That means that his firing was not within the interest neither of this minister or the cabinet ministers who appoint the deputy ministers. He preserved his office, his car, and the people under him who report to him. That means that the firing of such people from the minister of the inferior is possible only when the minister himself is fired. You know that we submitted the paper demanding the minister's firing of the minister. I mean, so it's very important for us not to become the victims to this, picture which is associated with the happiness and raptures associated with the introduction of new police in Kiev. This is obvious that this was the project of his deputy, one of his deputy, and through this he's trying to improve his image. It's very important for us not to become victims to such an attempt to manipulate the social thought.
Now I would like to say a couple of words about the dismissed prosecutors. Sergei Yudasha, prosecutor of the city of Kiev, much was done for his dismissal by the journalists, by investigative journalists. A lot of appeals were sent to the authorities, and instead of him in his position, we have a person who is 100% subject to lustration, but there is a court judgment which prevents him from dismissal, and we do not know how this court judgment appeared. Unfortunately, in our list, there are a lot of people who are to be dismissed in line with the legislation, but they have court rulings that they should not be dismissed. Now about prosecutors. We have Olexandra Polezhayev, prosecutor from Zaporizhia, who is dismissed, Sergei Beseda, Lugansk Oblast prosecutor, and Mikhailo Vinnichuk, deputy prosecutor of Vinnytsia region. And separately, I would like to point out that in our list, we have only the prosecutors and Ministry of the Interior officers who are decision makers in those agencies, and this is their responsibility, and was their responsibility when they made counter people decisions. Also, we have Igor Maranyuk, deputy head of the State Property Fund, Alexei Chenarov, executive CEO of the Water Resources of Ukraine Agency, Anatoly Boyko, first deputy head of the State Emergency Service, Dmitro Kravchenko, deputy head of the State Broadcasting, TV Broadcasting Committee. You should understand that dismissal of the deputy minister and or head of the state agency means to put an end to the corrupt schemes existing in this agency, and dismissing them from their positions, we liberate these agencies from corruption. And of course, the team remains in place, but on the other hand, instead of those who are dismissed from positions, there come to honest people, and it is important to have competition for appointments of those new people, new CEOs of agencies. And I would also like to add a couple words about the State Fiscal Service. It carries out inspections and checks of its own employees and CEOs, but also the tax declarations of other top officials, and it's the function of the State Fiscal Service to check whether the information disclosed in declarations is true and verified. we requested the information from the Ministry of Justice, and we revealed that in Volyn region the situation was a bit better than the civil activists believed, but the new appointments of CEOs to top official positions were not of high moral level, probably. And this only demonstrates that we cannot rely on lustration exclusively expecting that it will raise the moral level of government officials. In order to bring new, honest people, we need civil monitoring and civil control, civil society control. And in Khmelnytskina, which I mentioned, that's good that they keep an eye on what's going. Unfortunately, the local fiscal service does not carry out its functions in full amount. The leadership of this fiscal service probably do not understand fully the functions. If the NGOs and civil society organizations believe that the information declared in tax declaration is not true, they should provide this information to the central bodies for check. So upon our submission, Evgeny Nagorny from Fiscal Service in Cherkasy was dismissed. Also Hanna Nahorna from Kiev Fiscal Service was dismissed, but it seems that it was restored in her position, and and this is done in line with court ruling. Yuri Dvorak, head of the Kiev Customs Service and State Fiscal Service, was dismissed, and now he is promoted to the Verkhovna Rada Support Office. What you can see on our website, these are not names of the criminals, biggest corruptioners, or other offenders. This is the list of those behind whom the top leadership of the state is standing. This is the president, this is the prime minister's office, this is the state fiscal service, which do not carry out the proper checks and verification of declarations. I would like everybody to understand that nobody in the leadership of the state is interested in lustration. And if the NGOs do not unite their efforts, then this cancer will destroy the country. Maybe you have questions and I can answer very quickly. We have several questions. Please do not forget.
After Olexandra Zagorодny, the head of Ukrzaliznytsia under Yanukovych, was one of the managers of the inspection. How can you comment on that? And because Zagorодny openly says that he did not come through the illustration verification. Once again, I would like to say that the criteria of illustration are very specific. inaccurate. Those two criteria which I'm talking in the context of the automatic ones, they make provision that for a person to be at least 1 year in the office, or they did not return out his or her will during Maidan, after Maidan. That doesn't mean that falling under those criteria, absolute those who work under Yanukovych had to be fired. If those persons do not fall into within this list because of their office, they can be against them. We can be used other criteria like their position in the KGB or SB or anywhere else. So our task is to verify if a person who falls within the criteria, maybe not automatic, but some other criteria, had to be fired, but we have to have information about this person. If the society or the public at large doesn't provide us with this information, we cannot demand his or her firing. If there is information about the criminal proceedings, then we have to demand that the law enforcement bodies have to start the case. The law of illustration is not associated with the punishment. We have to make all other competent bodies to do their job. So we are prepared to do anything possible for this or another person to be fired if he doesn't deserve to be part of the state authorities or the bodies. And Shestopal, how are you going to struggle with the fact that the courts ban or prohibit to illustrate the officials? For example, there was a case, I know about this court ruling, she's not alone, as I mentioned before. There is a big problem. Over the 18 months, none of the judges has been illustrated, none, not a single one, despite the fact that there are two laws which exert control over the illustration of the judges. Recently, we signed the memorandum with RPR, the People's Deputies, MPs, the representatives of these public authorities, that we have to introduce amendments into the Constitution, according to which all the judges had to be, let's say, sacked, and then they had to be replaced on a competition basis. But unfortunately, we cannot fight in any way with the courts who actually come up with their own rulings. We have to change the judiciary generally or completely, and then to make everybody come into their places to follow